Found out my parents have been using me for tax evasion using my name totaling $3.7 million over the course of my life. I'm in my 20s, won't get more specific for obvious reasons, and my mom is a wealthy business owner. She and my dad created their company together when I was very young, and it became a major success. My parents divorced when I was a kid, and my mom ended up with sole ownership of the company. My father is a very bad person and I haven't spoken to him in years. No one in his family has a relationship with him. Until recently I didn't have the same level of distaste for my mom, but we have had an incredibly strained relationship my entire life, and I've put a lot of distance between us over time. Have I lived a very privileged life? Absolutely. I'm very grateful that, for all the traumas I endured at the hands of my family and others, financial stress was never something I had to worry about. I've been able to enjoy a lot of luxuries many don't. I try my best to be mindful of that and to hold back any sense of entitlement. That being said, I am in no way a wealthy person now. I live alone, work a normal job, pay for everything by myself, and live paycheck to paycheck. I live in a one-bedroom apartment on the not-so-great side of town. I'm very grateful for my independence and would prefer it over anything. I'm old enough to remember what my parents were like before they had money. I'm old enough to remember how different my friendships were when we were all just working-class kids, compared to what friendships were like with a bunch of spoiled rich kids. I've seen how money brings out the worst in people, and I want nothing to do with it. Obviously the grass is always greener on the other side, and of course I'd love to have enough money to not have to stress about how I'm going to pay my bills or pay off loans, but excess wealth isn't something I want. I've rarely asked for financial help and prefer to deal with things on my own. Mainly because I'm independent by nature, but also because any sort of financial help I receive has always been weaponized against me to paint me as an ungrateful or selfish person the second I have a problem with how I'm being treated. If my mom says or does something incredibly rude, heaven forbid I call her out on it, because after all, she gave me $1,000 to pay off my bills 3 years ago. How could she be worthy of any kind of scrutiny when she's been so generous with me? Important to note, my mom has made it very clear she has no intention of passing the company down to me or my siblings when she's ready to stop working, when she passes away, etc. She said she feels like it isn't something we'd want or be good at, that it would only complicate things between us, and she'd rather just sell it. She has also been insistent that I never work at her company. Even in high school when it would have been nice to have an easier job, even several years ago when I was having a really difficult time finding work after my previous job was shutting down, she has never wanted to entertain the idea I work for her. I have no affiliation with her company whatsoever, and I certainly don't receive any sort of salary from her. I'm sure she's probably intended to leave me a generous amount in her will, but I've never had any reason to believe there's any sort of trust set up for me. Well, imagine my surprise to discover I've been a partial owner of her company since I was a toddler, and according to the IRS, I've made a total of $3.7 million in personal income over the course of my life. In reality I haven't even made $250,000 in my lifetime. My mom has always been insistent on letting her CPA do my taxes. She says it's because she gets a group discount for having me and my siblings file with her CPA. Because she's a business owner she doesn't file until October, so I'll give her my W-2s, and as a thank you, she'll give me an extra $1,000 as a thank you. I never actually sign anything, never physically see my returns. That was the full extent of my knowledge of the arrangement. I know this is naive, but I trusted her. I haven't let her do it every year. She has a tendency to not actually follow through on her promises. This is a common thing with her and money, and hunting her down to even get the amount I'm actually supposed to be owed by the government, let alone extra money, has been a challenge. But most years since I've been working she's filed my taxes through her CPA. We've been in a really bad place in our relationship this year, and before I found out about any of this I had already decided to go low contact with her, so in April I went to file my 2023 taxes. Well, TurboTax wanted my gross adjusted income for 2022, and because my mom did my taxes that year I didn't have it, so I found it on the IRS website. That's when I saw that my adjusted income was $260,000 for that year. Obviously, I've never made an amount even remotely close to that in 1 year, let alone in my entire life. I was completely flabbergasted. I called her and tried to hide my fear and anger because obviously this made no sense. She was very dodgy about it, but basically said that I'm a partial owner in the company and she gives me that salary to help her get into a lower tax bracket. I was furious and panicking, but tried to keep that to myself and said, "So you're hiding that money and my income?" And she just kind of laughed nervously and was like, "No, not hiding anything." We had some pretty terse arguments after that the more I looked into it and processed this information. Part of what scared me more than anything is that she wasn't defending herself or getting mad at me for taking a tone with her. This is a woman who doesn't tolerate anything short of total respect, so if she's not fighting back, that means something is wrong. Not long after I got a very weird email from her CPA offering me an amount on the low end of 5 figures as a divestment to sway 8 in the deal to let them keep the structure the way it is for 1 year, then they'd never do it again. He was using a lot of flowery business language like this is a great benefit to the company and this helps save money that would otherwise go to the government. Well, obviously, I knew there was something very wrong, so I hired my own CPA with money I don't have to look into it. That's when I discovered that every single year I didn't file my taxes by myself. She has been reporting some of her income as mine going back to when I was a literal toddler when the company was first created. K1s have been being filed in my name without any knowledge of it. The amounts vary but are always six figures. These aren't the exact amounts, but let's say $220,000 when I was 16, $450,000 when I was 12, $360,000 when I was 9, and so on. Totaling to $3.7 million. There are also, strangely, some years where my last name has been reported slightly differently than my actual legal name, no second marriages or family members to explain that last name. Maybe it's a clerical error, maybe it's another way to shield and evade income, who knows at this point. There have been late payment penalties for several of those years too, but luckily I don't owe anything to the IRS. I don't know how to feel, but I'm feeling a lot of different things. This taints my image of an already very difficult childhood. All this time I've been a cash cow for my parents without being told a word or agreeing to anything, all just so these already very rich people can save a little extra money. Why the fuck can't you just pay your damn taxes like the rest of us and leave me out of it? I could expect this behavior from my dad, but I never would have guessed my mom was capable of something like this even for all her faults. In retrospect, her selfish and controlling behavior around money makes a lot more sense, but I'm realizing I don't even really know who she is. This isn't on both of them anymore, she's been doing IT all by herself since she took over sole ownership of the company when I was still a kid. I'm hiring a lawyer, again, with money I don't have, to figure out what percentage ownership I have in the company, subpoena K1s, find out where this money that's supposedly mine is going, the legality of this situation, and if I can get some of this money back considering it's mine in the first place. Opinions I've gotten have varied widely from it's perfectly legal and business owners do this all the time to this is felony tax evasion and very serious. As far as I know, this could be legal if I was actually receiving that money, if I had signed documents agreeing to a specific structure, if it was going into a trust fund, or something like that, but I have been absolutely in the dark and I haven't received a cent of this supposed income. I've signed nothing, I've agreed to nothing. Some say I didn't need to consent as a minor so I never had a say to begin with, some say even back then I had rights and I was supposed to be aware and able to make my own decisions. Most say that either way, her doing this without my knowledge or permission still as an adult is a problem. That doesn't even get into the implications for my siblings, assuming she's putting in around the same amount into their personal income, adjusting for varying ages, she's potentially hidden around upwards of $10 million in our personal income taxes. I can't wait to have to tell them about this once I have my facts straight. I have no desire to interfere with their relationships with our mom. Our relationships are separate. I don't want to cause problems for them. But if there's a serious issue happening, I mean even if it isn't illegal, I feel like I have to tell them. I would want to know obviously. If this is illegal, I have absolutely no desire to press charges or get my parents in trouble with the government. They absolutely deserve consequences as grown adults doing a shitty thing, but my family doesn't deserve the aftermath. Do I even want $3.7 million? No. That sounds like an insanely cartoonishly made up amount of money to ask for. I don't even know if I'd be entitled to that. Even just $50,000, $100,000 would completely change my life. But, I absolutely do want every dollar of what I'm owed. I want to get a fair deal out of all this for all the bullshit and stress she's put me through. I'm potentially complicit in committing a felony, this has been a nightmare to deal with. If it isn't illegal, I still want compensation of some kind, and either way it's still a disgusting thing to do in my eyes. It feels like such a betrayal. All of this being done under the guise of giving her a group discount on taxes. She has seen me struggle to pay rent, chastised me for not having nicer furniture or for finding a better deal on a nicer apartment, all the while she was using me to save hundreds of thousands of dollars each year for nearly every year I've been alive. Once this is all over with, I want nothing to do with her. I was already on that path anyway. Well, that's all I have to say for now. If enough people are interested, maybe I'll come back with an update when I know more, when it's resolved. All I have to say is I absolutely despise greed and how ugly money makes people. If I somehow come out of this as a wealthy person, I want to use most of it to give back and just live comfortably. I refuse to end up like my parents.